Hello, a very good evening to all my wonderful students. I can see already so many students are there. So very good evening to all of you. And today is a very beautiful and an auspicious day. A very happy Gokulashtami, or Janmashtami, or whatever. So it's a beautiful day to begin a new topic. And hello, a very good evening to all my... Oh, the YouTube was on. Okay. So, guys, today we are going to start with a new topic, and which is overheads. And so let's go ahead. I could read somebody has asked some problem. Shivani, maybe at the end of the session, I will look into your problem. Shrishti, I think it was you, Shrishti, I don't know. You had asked me a problem last time and I was not aware. Whether can we tell you the answer for the exam questions which we have given to you? Then I was clarified that yes, we can tell you the answers. So I wrote the answer after the YouTube session. I went to that ICAI YouTube site and I wrote the answer for you so that you can actually look into that how that answer was derived. So on this note, we'll start up with overheads, right? So I share the screen with you first. And as per routine, the way I teach, first I am going to tell you about overheads. I'm going to tell you what all are the requirements for overheads. What is it that ICAI is expecting from you? Then in the next class, which we are going to meet, we are going to turn the pages of ICAI and solve few questions, right? So first, let us begin with the word overhead. What does this word mean? What does this word mean, overhead? So guys, the word overhead, as the name suggests, this is over and above the direct expenses, or you can say that expenses which do not or cannot be, let me put it like this, cannot be directly related to the product. They can be anything. They can be incurred at production stage. They can be incurred at the administration stage. They can be incurred at the selling stage. So all these expenditures which do not directly go into the production, but without adding these expenses on the cost of a good, I cannot find out the correct cost per unit. I hope I'm able to tell you what I mean to say. I take up a very simple example, a very, very simple example. For example, you want to make a product, right? You know that for making 1 unit of a product, you will require 2 kgs of material, which can be bought at the rate of 5. That means per unit, you will be incurring material worth ₹10. Similarly, you know that you will require 1 machine hour or labor hour to produce a good, and you will have to pay at the rate of ₹10 per hour. Now, this 20 rupees technically is known as the prime cost. Why it is prime cost? Because without this, the good will not come into existence, right? Let me take up the product. Today is Janmashtami. Let me take up a laddu as a product, right? So if I'm making a laddu of, let's say, besan, then I know that for making 1 kg of laddu, how much of besan I require, how much of ghee I would require, how much of sugar I will require. So that's the material. I would know that, okay, for making 1 kg of laddus, then how much hours are spent and how much do I pay per hour. So that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you, that say, for example, you're producing a goat and you know that you require 2 kgs of raw material. You will be buying that raw material. You assume you may be buying at a higher or a lower rate. For that, you will reach standard costing, right? For finding out the variances. Right now, sitting for the purpose of doing or finding out the cost per unit of a product, you're just estimating that, okay, this is going to be my material and this is going to be my labor cost. Labor can be machine hours or the labor hours. But do you think the costing gets over here? Do you think that only this 20 rupees is the cost of that product? The answer is no. Because this is just the prime cost which we can actually see, which we can identify with the product. But there are so many other expenditures which are happening, right? If I talk of a factory, then from the time we enter the factory, we find a security guard. So of course we are paying his salaries, we are paying his wages. Then the upkeep of that factory, the rental of that factory, the repairs to the machine, the depreciation of the machines which is happening, the maintenance which is being done, the service staff which is there, a canteen or a department which is keeping the payroll. There are so many other expenditures inside the factory. Only if you actually think of, you can find from repair to power to fuel to factory rental to supervisor salary. There are so many expenditures which are being incurred inside the factory, which I cannot directly, associate with the unit being produced. But I think all of you will agree to me, I have to absorb or I have to divide the cost which I am incurring inside the factory over that per unit, because without doing it, I will not get the correct cost per unit. I don't have to pay all those expenses from my pocket. I have to find out the correct cost so that I can charge it from the customer whom I'm going to sell this product. Similarly, we have an office staff which is taking care of the accounting, which is taking care of how we are going to launch our product and everything. So that's technically my administration. And last but not the least, we need to sell our product. So again, we need to pay selling commissions, or we need to advertise, or we need to do a lot of promotional activities. Now, all these expenses which are being incurred at various stages till the good reaches the customer are actually indirect expenses for the manufacturer. And these indirect expenses are technically, in terms of costing language, are called as overheads. And what is our work? Our work is to actually absorb these overheads over one production unit so that we are able to get the correct cost of a product. I hope I'm good, right? So, anybody has any problem till here? So Shrishti, I think you would have seen that I've written the answer. Thank you so much, Harshita, Gaganpreet, everybody for wishing me Janmashtami. Okay, so I think everybody is clear with the meaning of the word overheads. Let me look into any doubt. Good evening, ma'am. I'm sorry, I want to ask a question about employee cost. My question is there any difference between employee cost and payroll? Payroll accounting, Mansha, it's like whatever you pay to the employees, you need to keep a time record of the same, and that's what is known as payroll accounting. And so basically, employee cost is the final expenditure which you are incurring on the employee. The methodology to record the same is actually the payroll system. So I think I've answered your question. So I think everybody understands the meaning of the word overhead, right? Then you need to understand that these overheads can be variable in character or they can be fixed in character. So if I talk in terms of the nature, the overheads can be variable or they can be fixed. If I talk in terms of function, then I can say that overheads are being incurred at the factory stage, or you can say the production stage, or you can say the administration stage, or you can say the selling stage. Fair enough, right? When you will do the cost sheet, you'll be able to appreciate it still more, right? That expenses which you incur at the factory stage are production overheads, expenditures which we incur at the administration stage are administration overheads, expenditures which we incur at the selling stage are selling overheads. Okay. Now, once I understand the meaning of the term overheads, what is it that we are sitting here to study, or what is it that ICAI expects from you students to actually understand, and they will be liking, they would be wanting to test your knowledge on the same. ICAI wants that, do you understand the concept of allocation, reapportionment, overhead absorption rate, blanket rate, under and over absorption, and last, the reasons. So if you talk from ICAI point of view, they divide this particular topic into that what is it that students should know. Students should know the concept of allocation, the concept of reapportioning the expenditure from the service department to the production department. Students should know how to calculate an overhead rate. Students should know the difference between a departmental overhead rate and a blanket rate. Students should know what do you mean by under and over absorption, and what could be the reasons for the same. So now, let us start with the first, allocation, right? Now, guys, I'm going to ask a question from you guys, and you need to give me the answer. So if I talk from the factory's point of view, imagine there is a factory, and inside the factory, you are producing two products. Okay, so there is product 1 and there is product 2, right? Now, these are two products which are being manufactured. But friends, for manufacturing these two products, there will be essentially service departments which will be rendering services to these production departments as well as to the other service department. Not essentially, but maybe. For example, if I take up a payroll accounting department, right? Somebody asked me, Mancha asked me, ma'am, what is payroll? So payroll department will be giving services both to the department which is producing P1 product and the department which is producing P2 product. So basically, it's a service department. It is not directly related to only to P1 or P2. They are service departments. Similarly, there may be a department, for example, a canteen. Right? Now, the canteen inside a factory, a worker working in department P1, a department P2, anybody would be going to the department, to the canteen and eating food. What I'm actually trying to tell you is that there are service departments also within the organization, right? The departments which are directly producing a product, they are known as production departments. And the departments which do not produce a product but render services to the product, to the departments which are producing the product, are known as service departments. So let me say I have got two service departments. Right? Let me look into any question. If there's any ask, Harshita, yes, ma'am, I clear all the list. Okay, it's clear. Thank you. Shrisha. So basically, absorption means the overheads cost for each unit. Absolutely bang on, Shrisha. That's exactly what it means. Ma'am, employee paying PF and employer are both deducted. Ria, when an employee gives PF, how does he give PF? He will ask the employer that you do one thing, do not pay me the money. You deduct a particular sum of money from my salary and pay directly to the PF account. So Ria, when you say employee paying PF, we say we deduct it, right? But how will an employer pay PF? Employer does not need to deduct anything. Employer, instead of paying directly to the employee, will pay directly into the PF account. So when we say PF deducted, it is always the share of the employee, which is deducted from the respective salary of the employee. I hope I'm very clear. If you're not able to get it in English, बहुत simple, I'll tell you in Hindi. I am a person, okay, I'm supposed to speak in Hindi. Okay, as such, I'm not allowed to speak in Hindi. But I don't know, you people are asking such questions, then please try to understand. I am an employee and Ria, you are my employer. From my salary of 100 rupees, 10 rupees, I want it to be paid into the PF account. So Ria, what could be the process? You pay me 100 and then from my 100 rupees, I give you 10 to deposit in the PF account. What could be the other way around? You are my employer. Instead of paying me 100, you pay me 90 and you deposit 10 rupees into the PF account. So that means in my hand, in Anu's hand, I will not get 100 rupees. I will get 90. So this is known as PF being deducted. And Ria, you have to deposit in my PF account. You are paying for me. Then you will deposit 10 rupees more. So how much will be there in my PF account? 10 rupees which I got deducted and got it deposited, and 10 rupees which you paid. Yes, I think all this you should understand in the tax lecture, right? In salaries topic, there is PF account, there is statutory provident fund account, there is recognized provident fund account. So I assume you should be very, very clear with this concept of PF, right? Okay. Now, Mansha, variable overhead vary with volume of production. Variable overhead varies with technically, if I talk in terms of hours, then in that particular situation, it will vary with the number of hours which you have worked. Right? So I would not like to call it with respect to units being produced. But if units being produced is dependent on the number of hours you're putting in, then definitely it is varying with production. So you can use it interchangeably. But technically speaking, variable overheads varies by, it means it is dependent on some or the other factor. For example, when I say indirectly, now indirect labor is dependent on the number of hours that indirect labor is putting in. So it's dependent on the number of hours, not on the units being produced. Okay, now, so I think I've answered the questions. Now getting back to what I was telling you. So please imagine there is an organization in which there are 2 production departments and there are 2 service departments, right? Now, guys, can you tell me that the factory rent, which is an overhead, let's say I'm paying a factory rent of 50,000. You people tell me, now this factory rent, how should I divide? What should be the basis which you think I should divide? Because within the factory, there are 2 production departments and there are 2 service departments. I will wait till I get an answer. So you people can tell me there is a factory rent. Now I can't just add it on one product, P1, because there are 4 products, 4 departments, P1, P2, S1, S2. So what do you think I should divide this factory rent on? Yes, Manish. The answer, what should I divide it on? What basis? Now, I've given you enough time to think. Now, I think all of you are going to give me the answer that, ma'am, you should divide rent on the basis of floor space area occupied. Yes or no? For example, P1 occupies 1000 square feet. P2 occupies 2000 square feet. And S1 occupies 500 square feet. And S2 occupies 500 square feet. That means, in totality, total area inside the factory is how much? 1000 plus 2000 plus 500 plus 5. How much is it? It is 4000 square feet area. That means this rental of 50,000 is for this whole 4000 square feet area. Yes. So if I need to divide this, what should I do? 50,000 divided by 4,000. So per square feet, I will get the answer that, okay, for per square feet, how much is the rental which I'm paying? Yes or no? How much does this come out to be? 50,000 divided by 4,000. It comes out to be 12 rupees 50 paisa. Yes. So in this particular situation, if P1 occupies 1000 square feet, we should allocate how much? 1000 into 12.5. That is 12,500 to P1 department. P2 occupies 2000 square feet area. So we should be doing it 2000 into 12.5. Yes. Similarly, for S1, we should be dividing 500 into 12.5 and S2 500 into 12.5. So I clear my screen now. So according to you, rent we should divide on the basis of floor space area. Now you tell me that if I want to divide depreciation, generally depreciation of the machines being used inside the factory, what you should divide it on the basis? Manish, you said you'll divide rent on the basis of machine hours. I disagree. Yes, it should be on the basis of area. Perfect. Perfect. Everybody has given me a perfect answer. I feel so happy that you people start solving along with me. And that's exactly the pattern to learn cost accountancy. Now I've asked you depreciation. Now, if there are machines, common machines inside the factory, then how do you divide the depreciation of those machines again on the P1, P2, S1, S2 departments? It will depend upon the number of machines being used in each department. So if there are 10 machines and 3 are being used in P1 and 3 used in P2 and 2 used in S1 and 2 used in S2. So that means the depreciation you will divide on the basis of number of, now when I say number of machines, it's wrong. Actually, it should be the value of machine. Because if each machine is of the same value, you can do it on the basis of 3:3:2:2. But if the value of the machines is different, then what you should say, no, ma'am, I can't do it on the number of machines. I will have to look into what is the value of machines used in department P1, P2, S1, S2. That means you will divide it. So the total machines used inside the factory is of 50 lakhs. You will say, ma'am, okay, 20 lakhs worth of machinery is being used in P1, 10 lakhs worth of machinery is being used in P2, 15 lakh worth of machinery is being used in S1. How much is it? 35, 45. 5 lakh is used in S2. So you'll say, ma'am, I will divide the depreciation on the basis of 2:1:1.5:0.5. Yes, value of the asset. So what is it that I am trying to tell you? I'm trying to tell you that you need to look into that what are the expenses, what are the overheads which have been incurred. That will be given to you in the examination by ICAI. They will be giving you these overheads, right? Now, these expenses which are there, you need to first allocate, or simple terms, you need to divide. Allocate or divide between all the departments. When I say all the departments, I mean production and service. I need to first allocate all the expenditure between all these departments. This is my step 1, which is known as overhead analysis sheet. Overhead analysis sheet. Once you divide all the overheads between all the departments, you have actually analyzed and divided the overheads on the basis to which they are most akin to. If you want to divide power, you will be doing it on the basis of horsepower being used. You want to divide electricity, you'll be doing it on the basis of light points being used in various departments. You want to divide rent, you will do it on the basis of floor space. So depending on what ICAI gives you as information, you will have to look into it, that which expenditure should be divided on what basis. ICAI has been very nice. They have given you a full list that this expenditure is dependent on this expenditure is dependent on this. But guys, I think all of us have that much of common sense level wherein we can actually understand that which expenditure should be divided on what basis, right? For example, if it is indirect wages, I will divide it on the basis of labor hours or on the basis of number of workers. So it will depend upon what information is given to me, right? Now, once I have done this, what should be my next step? So let me make an arbitrary example, as it is my methodology of teaching. So let me say P1, P2, S1, S2. These were the departments. We analyzed and we found out that overheads, after dividing and totaling them, we find out in P1 it is 50,000 rupees. All figures are in rupees, so I'm not writing rupees in front of everybody. P2, let's say it is 75,000 rupees. P3 is 30,000 and S2 is 20,000. Now these are the overheads I have allocated, I've analyzed and allocated. Let me see if anybody has doubt. Yes, ma'am, clear. Abhishek, what if product A and B both use the machine together? Yeah, they can use the machine together, but the question will have to tell me that, okay, both of them are using the machine together. It's a common machine. Then I'll have to divide it on the basis of number of hours. Right, Abhishek? So the information needs to be given. Right. Shivani, cost driver. You will understand this concept of cost driver when I will be teaching you activity-based costing. Right now, I'm not talking about cost driver. Tanvi, ma'am, what if a common machinery used for more than 2 departments? Tanvi, overheads, the reason for dividing the expenditure between these different departments is because these are all common expenditures. So I have to derive a methodology to divide these overheads on these departments. Now you say that, ma'am, I have got 10 machines and those 10 machines are being used by all the departments, all these 4 departments. So one method is, you can tell me, you need to tell me. Right now, since we get a question academically, we stick to value of the machine or whatever. But real life, what is it that you're going to do? You will say, okay, these are the common machines. Okay, we have used for 3 months this machine on department A, for 2 months on department. You can do it on the basis of time. If I tell you these are common machines, but in a day, 4 hours it is in department P1, 2 hours it is on department P2, for so many hours in S1, so many hours in S2, I can do it on hours basis. If machines are so that you can divide that, okay, out of these 10 machines, 2 machines, or let's say refrigerator, right? You say, okay, but refrigerator is there in all the departments, but so and so worth of refrigerators are being, value of the machine is being used in P1, so much is in P2, so much is in S1, so much is in S2. Then you do it as per value. You divide it on the basis of value. So what am I trying to tell you is allocation, the reason for allocation of overheads is because this is an overhead. It is not a direct expenditure. If at all, the expenditure can directly be related to a particular department, we don't need to allocate, we don't need to divide it. Then I'll just say this is the expenditure of P1 department. This overhead is of P1 department. The reason for allocating it on some appropriate basis arises because these are common expenditures which need to be divided. So I hope I'm clear, right? So, Charu, right now I'm not looking at the ICAI material. Today I'm first teaching. Once I finish teaching, then I'll go down to the material, right? Okay. Jyoti, apportionment of expenses from service department to production department. I'm coming to it, right? So I hope till now everybody is very, very clear with the concept of allocating or apportioning the overheads. The simple concept of allocating or apportioning the overheads is that we need to divide the expenditure between the various departments. For example, if I talk about lighting expenditure, now lighting expenditure, if the lighting, I can very clearly say this much is of P1, this much is of P2, this much is of S1, this much is of S2. I don't need to allocate. If I'm getting 4 different meters, imagine you've got 4 different meters. 1 meter is in P1 department, one is in P2, one is in S1, one is S2. Each one of them will be getting their own bills. I don't need to allocate. But this doesn't happen. For the whole factory, you have a common lighting expenditure, right? Which includes the department as well as, the common places. What do you do then? Then you actually, how do you divide the lighting expenses? You say, okay, how many light points I can say are being used for P1? How many for P2? How many for S? How many for S2? So then I divide the whole expenditure on the basis of number of light points. So am I very sound and clear? Thank you so much, right? Now I'm going up to the next step. So before I discuss the next step, I have a question for all of you. Why are we studying costing? Why are we studying costing? My question. What is the purpose of studying costing? Why are we studying this subject, cost accountancy? Can anybody give me an answer? Because then I'll move up to my next point. Why are we studying cost accounting at all? What is the basic purpose about it? Anybody? Okay. By the time you give me the answer, I'll give you the answer. The basic purpose why we all of us are studying cost accountancy, because we need to find out per unit cost, because we need to price a product. This is what is the answer which I give to everybody. The logic behind studying this subject, cost accountancy, is because we want to price a product, right? Now for pricing, I need to know the cost, because till the time I don't know the cost, how will I put a profit on it and how will I price it? See, once I know what is the cost, then pricing may depend upon what kind of environment I am. I am into a perfect market or I am into an imperfect market. Now that's a separate issue which we are going to study in CFI. So the prime reason for costing is that we need to find out cost per unit because we need to price a product. Now, once we are all very clear with this, so now all of you are intelligent enough. Pricing, production is only happening in P1 and P2. Now this S1 and S2 are service departments. The overheads I've divided on these departments, but actually these departments are, what will I do? The expenditure of these service departments have to be reallocated. We have to reallocate. We have to reallocate the expenditure of this S1 and S2 on P1 and P2 so that all the expenditures, all the overheads which are happening inside the factory stand apportioned on P1 and P2. Am I very clear? So I repeat, I reiterate what I say. S1 and S2 are service departments. I allocated the overheads because I want to do right kind of costing. So I allocated first all the overheads between all the departments. But my ultimate aim is to find out the cost per unit of a product. Where is production happening? Production is happening in P1 and in P2. So what is the next step that I need to do? I need to reallocate the expenditures of S1 and S2 on P1 and P2. Now, how do I do that? Now, please remember, we are chartered accountants. All this will be given to us. So do not get worried on that part. So examination also will tell you. And in real life, this is the work of the people at the shop floor level who will be giving us this information, right? Unless we find something grossly wrong that we stand to get more into it and try to correct it. Otherwise, this needs to be given to us. So let us say, I have been told that S1 renders services in 60:40% ratio between P1 and P2. And S2 gives services in 50:50 ratio. So this is given to me. This is given to me. What do I do? Simple. I divide 30,000 in 60:40 ratio. How much does this come out to be? 30,000 divided. I divide 18,000 and 12,000 here, 60:40 ratio. And now this becomes 0. Yes. Similarly, I divide the expenditure of S2 on P1 and P2. Yes. Now the expenditures of S1 and S2 stand reallocated on production department P1 and P2. Now the total expenditure inside the factory is now completely divided on P1 and P2. What is the total now? If I do it, 78,000 here, right? And this is how much? Yes. And if I say that I'm manufacturing 1,000 units and 1,000 units, then you'll say, madam, per unit cost happens to be 78,000 divided by 1,000, which is 78. And similarly, 97,000 divided by 1,000, which is 97 rupees per unit. So this is the whole reason, concept behind doing it. Everybody has followed it. Has everybody followed it? I've got wonderful answers. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Right. Now, if all of you have followed it, I give you a small sum on the screen. I'll give you 10 seconds and you solve it for me. Right. So I'm rubbing the board. Now let us say P1, P2, S1, S2. Direct material. Let's say we have incurred 10,000 and 15,000 worth of direct material in P1, P2 department. And yes, S1 happens to be a canteen, and canteen also has its direct material expenses. For cooking, you need material. So they have worth 8,000 of direct material expenditure. Similarly, they also have some direct material expenditure. Direct labor, let's say 10,000, 5,000, and let's say 2,000 here and 1,000 here. Then we had overheads, which we allocated and divided. It was 15,000 here and 10,000 here. And let us say 5,000 here. And let us say 2,000. Yes? This is it. And then I give you the information that S1 renders services in the ratio 70 and 30% here. And S2 renders services 40 is to 60% between P1, P2. We produce 1,000 units in both P1 and P2 departments, 1,000 in P1 and 1,000 in P2. Can you people tell me per unit cost? I give you 30 seconds for doing it. Yes, you can do that, Jyoti, but it will not happen. We will always do. So I give you 30 seconds for doing it. Okay, till the time you give me the answer, I solve it for all of you. Right. So, can I erase it? Right? Okay. So we should remember this was (70:30) and this was 40:60. Right? Only for remembering. I make offbeat questions. Okay. Now, first of all, the total S1 expenditures are how much? They are 15,000. And they may be direct material or direct labor for S1 department, but they are all indirect expenses. They're all overheads because they are service department. So any expenditure in the service department, whether it is direct material or direct labor or the allocated overheads, they are all overheads as far as the production departments are concerned. Right? So the total is 15,000 and I'd allocate on 70:30 ratio. So 15,000 into 70% is 10,500 here and 4,500 here. So this gets 0. Yes. Similarly, the total expenditure here is 5,000. This becomes 0. This is 40:60. So 2,000 gets divided here and 3,000 gets divided here. Now the service department expenditures stand completely absorbed on the production department. Look at the term which I'm using now, absorbed. Completely absorbed on the production department. Now what is the total cost? All costs are there in the production department. So 10 plus 10, 20, 35. 35,000 plus 10,500 plus 2,000, 47,500. Divide this by 1,000 units. So the cost per unit happens to be 47 rupees 50 paise. Similarly here, 20, 30, 37,500 Divide this by 1,000 units, and you get out with the cost of 37 rupees 50 paisa per unit. Let me see. Everybody has given me correct answer. I am feeling so proud of myself. That's perfect. So you understand this concept now? Overheads, what do you do with overheads? You need to absorb it. Can I do some twist and turn in it? If everybody is fine with it? Can I do some twist and turn? Abhi, it was very simple. Can I make it a little more complicated? Okay, I do it. So let us say we have got P1, P2, S1, S2. We've got 4 departments. Yes, we've got 4 departments, and let us say, I'm telling you finally the allocated overheads happens to be, let's say 50,000, 60,000, 20,000, 10,000. But I tell you that S2 renders services to production department, P1 and P2, and it also renders to service department, S1. Though S1 renders only to P1 and P2. Any problem? The only difference happening here is that in the first instance, in the first question which I gave, I told you that S1 is rendering only to P1 and P2. Similarly, I told you S2 is rendering services only to P1 and P2. No problem. You just divided the expenditures between P1 and P2 and done. But now I'm telling you that S2 is rendering services not only to P1, P2, but also to S1. But S1 is not rendering to S2, it is only rendering to P1 and P2. Now, can you guys see a step being formed? Can you see a step being formed? Because you have no other option, because you have to first divide the expenditures of S2 and then only divide the expenditures of S1. You can't do vice versa. Because if you divide the expenditure of S1 first, it will go wrong. Yes or no? You'll have to redivide, because when you will divide of S2, there'll be an expenditure on S1 and again you'll have to redivide. So why do you want to do that? Are you getting my point? If I divide the expenditures of S1 first, what will happen? It will get divided on P1, P2. But when you will divide the expenditure of S2, again there will be an expenditure on S1, which again you'll have to divide on P1, P2. So why do you want to do it in 2 steps? You can always do it in 1 step. And that step is first divide the expenditure of S2, then divide the expenditures of S1. So there is a ladder being formed. This is known as step ladder. This is known as step ladder. So I do that. So I divide the expenditure of this. So when I divide it, it will be 4,000, 4,000, and 2,000. And this becomes 0. Yes? And here, this is 22,000, 20, and 2. Now, this 22,000 you divide between P1 and P2. So it'll be 13,200. 8,800. So this becomes 0. And the total expenditures on P1, P2 would be 50 plus 454 plus 13,200, which is 67,200. And here it will be 60,000 plus 4,000 plus 8,800, 72,800. So am I clear? Am I very clear? Thank you. I can see a lot of people doing it. So that means everybody is clear with the step ladder method. Yeah. Right. I can see a lot of new names today. Hi, all of you. Okay. Now, I want to still make some changes. Are you people fine with it? Promise after doing this, I'll give you a break. Right. So, one more change. So, let us P1, this P2, this S1, this S2. And let me put in the overheads, 50,000, 60,000, 20,000, 30,000. And now I tell you, S1 renders services 40%, 40%, and 20% to S2. And S2 renders 50, 30, 20. This becomes equal. Let me change it. Can you appreciate it? Now what is happening? S1 is rendering services to P1, P2, and S2. And S2 is rendering services to P1, P2, and S1. So they are both rendering services to each other. So if I go like a layman, which is layman, when I say, it's known as repeated distribution. Repeated distribution means just like any small child will do. It will first divide S1's expenditure, then S2's expenditure, then again S1, then again S2, then again. Let's try doing it. So let me try doing it. Guys, in my next class, I'll be turning the pages of the study material. My reason for teaching everything now here is I would like that every one of you is going to have a look at the text material so that in the next class, you're going to be good to ask me questions that, okay, ma'am, why is this written in the ICAI? The way we did it in employee cost, right? We turned the pages of ICAI. Okay, now, so let me divide S1's expenditure. So S1, if I divide 20,000 into 40%, so 8,000 goes here, 8,000 goes here. This becomes 0, right? And 4,000. Now S2 total becomes how much? 30 plus 4, 34,000. Yes? Divided 34,000 to 50% happens to be 17,000. 10%, 3,400. Yes? Yes, I divided. Now you can see there is an expenditure on S1. So I again divide this. Right? Okay, so let me divide it. 3,400 into 40%, 1360, 1360, 680. Now again there's an expenditure on S2. What do? I again divide this. Okay, this becomes 0 now. I divide it. 340 goes here. 68 goes here. And 680 into 40%. 272 goes here. Now again there's an expenditure on S1. I again divide it. Okay. So 68 into 40% is 27.2. 27.2. And 13.6. Now, again, I divide this 13.6. Now you have two options. You have two options. Very small amount will come on S1. Very small amount on S1 will come, as you can see, 13.6 into 50%, 6.8 goes here. Some point, 1.36 will come here, right? So might as well, what you can do is you can just divide it equally and finish it off. So actually everything becomes 0. Now all the expenditures are divided, right? So P1, you have all the expenditures of S1 and S2, and S2 stands divided. As you can say, this particular method is very, very time consuming. Yes, sir. It's very, very time consuming. You divide the expenditure of S1, you do it for S2, keep on doing it till the time you get that nominal figure of 1 rupee 2 rupees. This method is known as repeated distribution method. Is everybody clear? Is everybody clear? If yes, I can tell you a method. Instead of doing all this, I can make it simple. If you're fine. If you're fine with it, I can make it simpler. Yes, so everybody is fine. So let me make it simpler, right? Please remember what are the costs. You may please total it up. P1 pay, how much was it? It was 8,000 plus 17,000 plus 1,360 plus 340 plus 27.2 plus 6.8. So the total of this was, I'm writing it here, 26,734. Yes or no? Similarly, you guys can do it here, 8,000 plus 13,600 plus 1,360 plus 272 plus 27.2 plus 6.8. So it is some 23. The total of this is 23,266. I'm writing this for some reason, right? So that we don't forget, right? Okay. Now this is the total of the overheads of these two. What is the total of these two overheads? Can you look at it? The total of these two overheads happens to be 50,000. Yes. What is the total of this? Can we add this up? 23,266 plus 26,734. This is also exactly 50,000. Yes. Okay. Done. Now, I'm rubbing the board, and instead of doing repeated distribution, I would actually try to make it simpler if at all I can. Okay. Okay. Instead of repeating it again and again and again, I think we are smart, intelligent students. Why don't we make a linear equation? So we can have a linear equation like S1 has got its own expenditures, that is S1 has its own expenditure of 20,000 plus how much of S2? How much of S2? 10% of S2. Yes or no? Similarly, S2 has its own expenditure plus how much of S1? 20% of S1. So if I open this up, I can write it like this. S1 is equivalent to 20,000. Is lesser place. Write it here. I can write it down like this. S1 is equal to S1 plus 10% S2, and S2 is equivalent to S2 plus 20% S1. So I can further write it like this. S1 is equal to 20,000 plus, can I write 10% as 0.1 of S2? And can I write S2 is equal to 30,000 plus 0.2 S1. Now guys, there are two equations and there are two variables. Now solving an equation with two variables is like stuff, right? Can I just substitute either in place of S2 or in place of S1, whatever you want. So I decide to substitute in place of S2. So can I write it like this? S1 is equivalent to 20,000 plus 0.1, 30,000 plus 0.2 S1. Yes, I've just written in place of S2, I've just written this. Can I open the equation? So it will be 20,000 plus 0.1 into 30,000 is going to be 3,000. 0.1 into 0.2 should be 0.02, but still I'll check. 0.1 into 0.2 will be 0.02 S1. Equation is open, so can you just take this side? So it will be S1 minus 0.02 S1, so it will be 0.98 S1 is equivalent to 23,000. 0.98 is equivalent to 23,000. So if I solve this, S1 comes out to be 23,000 divided by 0.98. This comes out to be 23,469. This comes out to be 23,469. Now, can I find out the value of S2? Yes, I can. S2 would be, if I try to find out the value of S2, it is going to be 30,000 plus 20% of S1, right? So into 20%, so plus 4, 6, 9, 4. Just rounded it off. So S2 comes out to be 34,694. Yes? Just solve it. Yes? Any problem in this? Now, can we allocate it? Now, guys, look at the total of this. This is definitely more than 50,000, right? So, going by common sense, I cannot allocate more expenditure, right? The expenditure that can only be divided can only be 50,000. So, what do? I'm rubbing this board now. I'm rubbing this board. Yes, I'm rubbing the board. We're checking it out. If it will be wrong, no issues. Let's check it out. Just it's just simple maths, right? Okay. So now S1 is 23,469, right? So S1 incurs how much? 40% on P1 and 40% on P2. So can you do 23,469 into 40%? It comes out to be 9,387.6 and 9,387.6. What did I do? I took 23,469 into 40% because you divide only 40%. Okay. Similarly, S2 34,694, right? Into 50%, 17,347 And then 34,694 into 40%. 13,877.6. Can we do the total of this? Okay. 9387.6 plus 17347. This comes out to be 26,734.6. And here 9387.6 plus 13,877.6 comes out to be 23,265.2. Have you people seen something? You can't divide 4:4 or 5:4. This S1 expenditure has got its own expenditure plus the expenditure, the share of S2. Similarly, S2 has got its own expenditure plus a share from S1. Now, from this, now these are overlapping expenditures. As you can see, this is more than 50,000. But what you need to allocate on P1, P2 is only going to be 50,000. So what do you need to do? Mathematically, just 23,469 into 40%. That's it. Magic, right, Ria? Yeah, this is magic. It's very simple. We make things complicated. So I give you a break for 10 minutes. See what I have taught you. And yeah, we'll come back after 10 minutes. Okay. Hi guys. So the 10 minutes break is over, and I think everybody has followed what I'm trying to tell you. Let me read if any doubts are still there, except the magic which came. Hi, ma'am. In exams, if they ask step ladder method, can we use this maths formula? Will it be considered? Nitya, you have not got the crux. These methods, if it is a step ladder, how can you apply this equation? In step ladder, one service department is rendering services to the other department, but the first department is not rendering to the second department. So when you are doing step ladder, you don't need to apply equations you will apply, or you will be applying simultaneous equation method only when the two service departments are rendering services to each other. Manish, ma'am, in trading firms selling distribution admin costs, we don't include in cost of goods sold. We likewise, here is factory cost. So these service departments are related to factory or administration or selling. Okay, Manish, first of all, let me go one by one. In a trading organization, if in a trading organization I'm talking about, there'll be no production overheads. The good is already produced. We are only selling the goods. So there will be only selling, distribution, and admin expenditure, right, which is being incurred. But in case of when I'm actually manufacturing, then there is production overheads. Now the administration overheads can be, if I have an administration department inside the factory, then I'll have administration overheads within the production unit. Then I will add up the cost of those expenditures in the cost of goods sold. And any administration expense which is not relating to production definitely is not a part of the cost of goods. We directly add that extra cost when I am actually finding out the cost of the unit which I'm selling. Right? So Manish, that's it, and nothing else. Namrata, how did I calculate 23,469? Okay, I share the screen. If at all I have not rubbed it. If I have rubbed it, then I'm sorry. You can see it here. We made the equations. All that we had solved it, Namrata. So you can go back when you are, after the lecture is over, please go back, and there you will be able to see that how we made the equations. We found out the values, and after finding out the values, we divided it. Right, Namrata? Okay. So I think everybody is very, very clear that till now what we have studied is what is overhead. Then we actually studied with respect to the fact that, okay, just a second, we tried to study that, okay, how do you allocate these overheads? Then we talked about that how do you reapportion the expenditures. And when we say that we are reapportioning, there could be a direct method which is simpler. You are just given that, okay, S service department 1 gives services to P1 and P2, and S2 gives it to P1 and P2. So it could be a direct method. It could be step ladder, or if both the service departments are rendering services to each other, then there is going to be repeated distribution, or you can actually use a linear equation in order to find out the cost. Right? Till now, we have studied this much. Right? Now, guys, we go a step forward. Right? And what is that? And that is, now we understand that there are overheads, we need to allocate them, we need to reapportion them. Why do we need to do that? Because we need to find out per unit cost. Now I'll tell you two more things before I end up session for today. And that is finding out an overhead recovery rate. What do you mean by departmental overhead recovery rate and what you can say, a blanket rate. And then I'll be telling you about under and over absorption of overheads. So with that, every possible thing which ICAI expects you to know, we'll finish studying. So that will be like, a topic. Tomorrow, next class, we'll be actually looking at the ICAI material, go step by step, solve more questions. And I think then we'll be sorted. Yeah. Okay. So I take up the next thing, that is finding out how to calculate overhead absorption rate. How do we find out overhead absorption rate? Before I teach overhead absorption rate, let me tell you, there is something called as departmental overhead rate, department overhead absorption rate, or you may have a rate, or you can have an overhead absorption rate for the factory as a whole. And then this is known as blanket overhead rate. So I repeat, when you are doing it department-wise, you say it overhead absorption rate for a particular department. But when you're doing it for the factory as a whole, then you say, madam, we are actually finding out a blanket rate, and we are not going in by departments, but we are just finding out an overhead recovery rate as per the factory, right? So this is the difference between the two terms, departmental overhead absorption rate and blanket rate. Now, coming up to how do we calculate overhead absorption rate? Yes. Now, let me give you a question. Let's talk about a department. Okay, not a department. So first of all, let us discuss that what could be the possible methods of absorbing overheads. Let us first talk about that. So when I say absorption, there is nothing specific that you need to do it only by this method. You can absorb overheads on the basis of units produced, right? You can absorb overheads on the basis of machine hours worked. You can do it as per direct labor hours worked. Or you can do it as per prime cost. You can also do it if any other method you think is more appropriate. Now, how do we decide that which method of absorption we should absorb, right? Because see, this is very, very simple. It's like whatever the overheads are, you put all the overheads at one place, whether it is rent, whether it is electricity. See, after you have done the allocation, after you have done the reapportionment, you know all the overheads of that specific department, if you're going department-wise, are at one place, right? So you know all the overheads are of that particular department. What will be the overheads? Now let us say if the total overheads in department P1 are going to be 1 lakh rupees, right? And you want to go by units produced. So what do you do? So you say that, okay, my budgeted overheads, why budgeted? Because see, you do costing on day one. You are doing costing on day one. So you will only be budgeting depending on the trend or depending on what expenditures would be. That is why forecasting techniques are taught to you as far as costing as a subject is concerned. So we actually find out that, okay, how many units we'll be producing, how many hours will be spent, how much will be my expenditure, what will be my fixed expenditure, what will be my variable expenditure. So we basically budget our overheads. So let's say my budgeted overheads is, let's say, 1 lakh. And you decide that my budgeted units are going to be 10,000. Yes. That means you have derived that, okay, as per absorption costing, wherein I've used the method of absorbing overheads on the basis of units produced, my overhead absorption rate is going to be 10 rupees per unit. Am I very clear? Is it some rocket science? No. So some people write that down that OAR is equal to budgeted overheads divided by, now that dividing will depend upon whether you are taking up units produced, you're taking up machine hours, you're taking up direct labor hours. What is the method you're using, right? Now let's say I want to divide it on the basis of machine hours. Now for that, what do I do? If I say that I will be producing 1000 units and each unit takes around 4 hours. So budgeted hours would be, it'll be 1 lakh divided by what will be your budgeted hours, 1000 into 4, 4000 hours. Now here your overhead absorption rate is as per the hours which you have worked, which is 1 lakh divided by 4000, which comes out to be 2.5 rupees per hour. Any problem on this? Right? Here it was 10 rupees per unit. Here it will come out to be, sorry, it was 10,000 units. Sorry, 10,000 units. So this will be 40,000. Right? So then if per unit, if I say it is 10 rupees per unit, then by hours I can say it is 2 rupees 50 paisa per hour. Similarly, I can absorb it on the basis of labor hours. I can do it as a percentage of prime cost. You can adopt any method for the purpose of absorbing overheads. The question is, why are we doing it? Why are we deriving any methodology for the purpose of absorbing overheads? So here, I would like to tell or share something with you. Now, guys, all of us are very clear that we are doing costing on day one, right? Because we need to price our products. Now, if I want to price my product, I need to know the cost of my product so that I can add a particular amount of profit and then determine the selling price. Now, the variable expenditures, whether in terms of material or labor or any kind of variable overheads are also there. They are easy to determine and they will be incurred as per the, they'll vary, with units which you're producing, right? Now here someone will say, ma'am, you said that variable overheads will be dependent on the hours work. So hours work will depend upon the units you produce, right? But what about the fixed cost? What about the fixed overhead or the fixed expenses? Now, fixed expenses, they are going to be incurred, whether I produce 0 units or whether I produce 1 lakh units. This you have studied in economics. If you remember your graphs in economics, then variable cost used to be from here. You produce 1 unit, you incur 5 rupees, let's say you produce 2 units, you incur 10 rupees, you produce 3 units, you incur 15 rupees. Now that was a variable overhead graph. But if you remember your fixed cost, which was being taught to you, what was a horizontal straight line, right? Which was like that, okay, if you produce 0 units or you produce till your optimum, and let's say my optimum happens to be 10,000, then till my maximum capacity, I don't have to take another factory or I don't have to have more than one supervisor, whatever. Means my fixed costs are freezed till 10,000 units. Now here, with every unit that you produce, my fixed cost per unit used to fall. Yes or no? My fixed cost per unit used to fall. Right? Now, all this was taught to you in economics. Why? All these concepts, you need to apply it in costing now. You are sitting on day one, wherein you may be given what is your maximum capacity. Now, maximum capacity can be that I can produce 10,000 or units in a year. That's my 10,000 is my maximum capacity. But that may not be the capacity which I'll be able to work or which I'll be able to achieve. So we budget, we sit down, we sit back, and we try to find out, okay, what will be my budget? What could be the normal capacity at which I can operate? So let us say it was realized that I budget to produce and sell 8,000 units. Now this budget capacity need not essentially be the maximum capacity. Maximum is 10,000, but I budget, keeping into mind my normal circumstances, I budget to produce 8,000 units. Actually, you may end up producing 7,000 units. Yes, sir. But when will I come to know my actual? When will I come to know my actual? Only after the things are done, after things are over. Yes or no? So, I don't know my actual, but I need to find out the cost per unit. So how do I know the cost per unit? I know the material cost, I know the labor cost. I need to find out the overhead recovery rate. And for that overhead recovery rate, I may take up what is the budget or what is the budgeted capacity at which I can work. And once I've identified my budgeted capacity, I may decide to absorb overheads on the basis of machine hours. If I am a machine intensive industry, I may decide to do it on labor if I am a labor intensive industry. If I think I can I cannot calculate the hours, I can do it on the basis of prime cost. Okay, this is going to be the prime cost for producing the units, and this may be the percentage of overheads. I can do it on that basis. I can do it directly on the basis of units produced. So, method of absorption will depend upon the situations, the circumstances, the convenience. And as you can see, this absorption costing method is so simple. Why is it simple? It's simple because it is just giving you one overhead recovery rate, and then you can just, when you're producing a unit, you have the material and the labor cost, that is the prime cost. If you have, you can just add up the overhead on the basis of absorption rate and get out with your cost of production. So it's actually very easy. But trust me, it's easy, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. It does have problems because absorption costing, or we call it traditional costing, because it is simpler. This was the first method. It is an old, simple methodology when we just take up the overheads and divide it by any one thing, and that method or that rate I apply to every unit which I produce. But this is good only till the time I'm producing homogeneously similar goods, or I'm producing one good. I repeat, this method of absorbing overhead is good till the time I am producing one kind of product, or I am producing homogeneously similar products, right? If yes, then this absorption costing is one of the best methods to absorb overheads and find out the cost per unit. But, if I am producing more than one unit, and they are not similar in character, they are not homogeneously similar, then guys, we need to resort to activity-based costing. So that's the second, or I would say, a more appropriate form of absorbing overheads if I am into production of multiple products which are not homogeneous in character. So do I make sense? Do you understand? Is the topic overhead costing getting into your heads, what is overheads? Yes. If yes, I can go down to the last part of it. And yes, next class is going to be fun then because we'll be solving lots and lots of sums. Christina, what does overhead recovery mean? What does overhead recovery mean? Okay, Christina. Christina, if I say my factory overheads for the year 2021 are going to be 1 lakh rupees. And I have decided that I will absorb overheads, or I should say, instead of absorb, can I use the word divide? So I will absorb or divide. I'll divide overheads on the basis of, let's say, machine hours. And let's say my budgeted capacity happens to be 10,000 units. And it takes 4 hours to produce 1 unit. So my overhead absorption rate would be 1 lakh rupees divided by 4 into 10,000. Yes. So my overhead absorption rate is rupee 2.5 per hour. Yes, Christina? Yes. Okay. Now, answering to your specific question, what is overhead recovery? What does it mean? So I'm just rubbing the board a little bit here. Right, Christina? And if you follow, please answer me yes. And if you haven't, tell me no. So, now all this was as per my belief that I'll be able to produce my budgeted capacity, that was 10,000 units. But say I actually produce 8,000 units and I work for 31,000 hours. Yes. Now, since my overhead absorption rate was as per machine hours, how much is the overhead which I recover? When I say recover means I can charge. Recover means how much I can charge. So since I worked only for 31,000 hours, I managed to recover how much overheads? I managed to recover how much overheads? Let's calculate, please. 31,000 into 2.5. I managed to recover I managed to recover 77,500 overheads. So recovery means I calculated an overhead rate. According to me, I should be charging overheads on a unit produced at the rate of 2 rupees 50 paisa. According to me, I should produce and sell some 10,000 units and I should work for some 40,000 hours. But actually, I don't work for 40,000 hours. I worked only for 31,000 hours. Due to which, how much expenditure did I charge on the cost or the cost sheet? I charged only 77,500. My expenditure actually maybe let's say 96,000. But I'm not able to recover all my overheads because I never worked as per the capacity which I had actually decided upon. So that further gives rise to under absorption or over absorption. So Christina, am I clear? Am I very sound and clear? Because I was supposed to come at under and over absorption after this. So, but thanks to you because you asked a question. So can you see I'm not able to recover all my overheads. So if I talk with respect to my budgeted overheads, I budgeted that I will be having factory overheads of 1 lakh, but I could recover only 77,500 overheads. Balance overheads, which I could not recover, they are under absorbed overheads. Under absorbed, why? Because I could not, the overheads are incurred, but I'm not able to charge them. So for this, I take up a very small example so that you're able to do it again, right? So I re-explain the whole thing again, right? Okay. Now, guys, let us say for producing one good, I have a cost sheet given to me. Direct material is at the rate of rupee 10. You budgeted to produce 10,000 units. You budgeted to produce 10,000 units, but you've actually produced 8,000 units, right? So let us see how will the cost sheet appear. So direct material 10 rupees into, I produced actually 8,000 units. So 8,000 at the rate of rupee 10 is rupees 80,000. My labor here is the machine hours. Let's say I actually worked for some 31,000 hours, and labor charges and overhead charges are different. Huh? So I'm supposed to pay as per 5. So 31,000 into 5, 1,55,000. So this is my prime cost of producing 8,000 units. $235,000. Now I am recovering, I'm absorbing overheads, right? So 31,000 at the rate of 2.5, I absorbed overheads 77,500. Yes. So 2,35,000 plus 77,500. This is my cost. This is my cost. Yes. And this cost was predetermined. Right? Predetermined in the sense I was very clear. My overhead rate is going to be 2 rupees 50 paisa. My labor charges are going to be paid at the rate of 5 rupees. My material is going to be 10 rupees. Material, labor, overhead, I decided on, okay, I charged off, I absorbed my overhead. How much is the cost of these 8,000 units? It is 3,12,500. Now let us say, so per unit cost is how much? Per unit cost is 3,12,500 divided by 8,000, 39.0625. Now, if I'm selling my customer, this product at 45 rupees. If I'm selling this customer this product at 45 rupees, right? Now, technically speaking, this gentleman to whom I'm going to sell these goods, 45 into 8,000, he's going to give me 3,60,000 rupees. Yes or no? My cost, which I have recovered as per this Absorption costing is 3,12,500. So I will tell everybody that I have made a profit of 47,500. Yes or no? This is what I'm going to tell everybody. But have I made a profit of 47,000? This is a very big question. Have I made a profit of 47,500? The answer is no. If my budgeted, I'm not even talking about what is my actual overhead. If I say that my budgeted overheads are 1 lakh and actually I've incurred 1 lakh, but I've only charged 77,500. So what is the difference? What is the difference? What is the difference? 1 lakh minus 77,500. How much is it? 22,500 expenses are incurred, but I have not even charged them. If I have not even charged them, that means this profit which I'm showing is higher than what actual profit should be. Technically speaking, my profit should be 47,500 minus 22,500 because this expenditure is incurred. Yes or no? My real profit is only 25,000. My real profit is only 25,000. I never subtracted these expenditures. So this you will study and understand more as we keep on, unraveling costing to you. But since Christina had asked me this question that what do you mean by overhead recovered? I hope now, Christina, you're very, very clear that overhead recovered is 77,500 because my recovery rate was 2 rupees 50 paisa per machine hour, labor hour, and machine or labor, whatever I'd done it. So it was per hour 2 rupees 50 paisa. I actually worked only for 31,000 hours. So I actually recovered or absorbed or charged. You can use any word. Charged, recovered, absorbed. How much? I absorbed only 77,500. So because of this under absorption of overheads, you are actually showing a higher profit. Am I very clear? Christina, 77,500 is not incurred. Christina, 77,500 is not incurred. It is recovered. What you're actually expending, I have not even considered that. Right. Let me see. Is everybody followed? Yes, this is notional profit, Jyoti. This profit which I'm getting is a notional profit. Okay. Most of you are clear, but even if one of you is not clear, I get unhappy. Guys, when are you doing costing? Are you doing costing after production is done? When you're going to sell the product, then you're doing the costing? Or you need to do the costing beforehand? My very basic question to all of you. When do we do costing? Thank you for understanding. Thank you, Christina. But I'm reiterating what I was trying to tell you again. For anybody who has not followed. Guys, when are we doing costing? We are doing costing on day 1. So there is something called as budget and there is something called as actual. Actual, I will come to know only after things are done. Actual, I will come to know only after the things are done. What do I need to do in order to make my life, in order to make my work simpler is to actually budget as to what I can do, how can I absorb my overheads. Yes. So, for example, you budget that your overheads are going to be 2 lakh rupees. And you budget that you can work for how many hours? You can work for 1 lakh hours. Then in that situation, you calculated an overhead absorption rate on the basis of hours, which was 2 lakh divided by 1 lakh. And you calculated that for every 1 hour worked, you will be absorbing or you will be recovering 2 rupees per hour. Now, this is not what you are incurring. Please get the difference. This is not what you're incurring. You budgeted on day one what will be the overheads. You decided on the most appropriate method for absorbing overhead. So let us say we zeroed down on hours, labor hours, and we decided that, okay, what will be the budgeted hours which I can work? So it was 1 lakh hours we budgeted. And on that basis, I calculated an overhead absorption rate or overhead recovery rate. So according to me, my overhead recovery rate is ₹2 per hour. Right? Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes. Okay, let me look at the questions. Shivani, 2.5 will be given to you in the question, or you can calculate. They will give you the budgeted overheads, they will give you the budgeted hours, and you can calculate that rate. So technically, yes. Wonderful one, Shivani. Thank you, Vrinda. Thank you, Charu. Thank you. So everybody understands that you're doing costing beforehand, right? You need to find out the cost. So you are basically, in order to find out the cost of a product, you are finding out an overhead absorption. Now, after finding out this overhead absorption rate, I tell you how costing becomes easy. For example, for 1 unit, I know my direct material cost is going to be 10 rupees. My direct labor cost is going to be ₹5. And I know that it takes me 4 hours to produce one good. So 4 into 2 is the recovery rate. So 4 into 2, 8. Now, can you look at it? I know that, okay, my cost should be 23. Actually, it may not be 23. For that, we will study standard costing, that when it is not 23, we need to find out the variances and we need to find out who is to be blamed, all that, right? So right now, I come to know that, okay, technically my cost should be 23, and then I add a profit percentage on it. So let's say I add a profit of 7 rupees profit I add. So I know I can sell the product at 30 rupees. So this is the logic behind absorption costing. The reason for absorbing overheads is so that you can actually find out a cost of a product and then add profit to it so that you can determine a selling price. I hope I'm very clear, right? So once this is very clear, I'll tell you what will be happening. What happens actually, that this is what we determined. We found out the cost and we took out the cost and we added the profit and we determined the selling price. At the end of the year, we may realize that, boss, we have the actual overheads. The budgeted overheads was something else and actual overheads is something else, right? And it may not be the same at all. Right? So let's say my budgeted overhead recovery rate was ₹5 per hour. Let's say it was 5 rupees per hour. Right? Now I will tell you my actual overheads incurred. This I will give to you in the question. My actual overheads incurred, let's say, happens to be, I'll give you some information, and let's say that happens to be 1,20,000. Right? Now, Actual overheads incurred is 1,20,000. Now you would like that how much overheads we recovered. How much overheads we recovered. So for that, you will have to give me the actual hours which have been worked. So actual hours worked, let us say, is 43,000. Sorry. Actual hours worked is 32,000 hours. If your actual hours worked is 32,000 hours, you will say you actually worked only for 32,000 hours and overhead recovery rate was 5 rupees per hour. So how much overhead you managed to recover? How much overhead you managed to recover? You managed to recover 32,000 into 5. You managed to recover some 1,60,000. Now, this is over recovered. This is over recovered. Because actually we incurred only 1,20,000. But how much did we recover? We managed to recover 32,000 into 5. We have actually charged how much in the cost? We have actually charged to the people. We have actually charged in the product 1,60,000. Why? Because our overhead rate, which we determined, was 5 rupees per hour. We worked for 32,000 hours. 32,000 into 5 happens to be 1,60,000. So how much have we charged to the people? How much have we charged in that product? We have charged 1,60,000, which is much more than what is actually incurred. So you'll say this is over recovered or this is overcharged. It could have been the other way around also. Let's say I worked only for 20,000 hours. Then you'll say, oh, we recovered only 1,00,000 rupees, though we incurred 1,20,000. Then you'll say this 20,000 is under recovered. Then we'll call this as under recovered. Yes. Now, over absorption, fair enough. We have worked more, we have produced more, good. But if it is under absorbed, then definitely it's a matter of worry for me, because I would like to know why. Why are we not able to recover the overheads? Because under recovery means I am showing higher profits, though I'm actually earning lesser profits. So under recovery is not a great idea. I will get into the skin of it and I'll try to find out that what is the reason. Was the reason controllable? Was the reason not controllable? Yes. Thank you so much. It makes me feel so happy. And you know, such a big chapter of overhead, we have done everything today itself. Yes. So putting everything what we have studied till now, we understand what overheads mean. We understand what allocation means. We understand what reallocation or reapportionment means. For reapportionment, we can have direct or simple method. We can have step ladder. We can have equation or repeated distribution. We understood what is the meaning of overhead absorption rate, and we understood what is under and over. But guys, today we have just studied. We have just studied. Now we need to solve sums, because solving more and more sums will only help us understand that is the concept completely understood by us. Right? Right? So I think after these 2-3 lectures, everybody is very attuned to my pattern of teaching, wherein I first teach you a concept, because after teaching a concept, at least 30-35% goes into your head. Then I would like that before my next class, you would go through the ICAI material. Then we will do the sums of ICAI material. We'll complete all those sums, and then you can ask me doubts. So that will be the pattern which we had been following in employee cost, and that's what we have followed in overhead also. Now, anybody has any doubt with any concept? If yes, I re-explain. If no, I solve the doubt of a girl, Shivani. She had asked me a question on employee cost. Shivani, can you write it again as to which question you wanted to ask me, please? If at all you can, it will be a big favor. If you can tell me which question you wanted to ask me. Is there anything which you want to ask me, please let me know. Anything which you want to ask me? Okay, I just noted down your problem. I think you were asking me something on employee cost. So I will share the screen with you and okay. Okay, it is illustration 10 you had asked me, right, Shivani? So let me see which is illustration 10. What is illustration 10? Illustration 10. Illustration. Which was this? Illustration 6. Illustration 10, where is it? This is 14. God, where is illustration 10? 13. 10, okay. Oh, this we discussed in the class. Okay, you want me to do it again? I'll do that. Okay. Now, Shivani, this is very simple. Vrinda, there can be theory questions on these. What is the supplementary rate? Vrinda, I'll be doing all this. No doubt, ma'am. Very clear. Thank you so much. Charu, ma'am, I have confusion that at what time we divide the cost by normal capacity or by actual working and costing. Charu, you never divide it by actual. You always divide it by normal for the purpose of absorption. So I repeat, Charu, you never divide it by actual. You do it always by normal capacity for the purpose of finding out overhead rate. Krishna, under and over again, ma'am. Okay, Krishna, I'll do it after solving it out. Ronit, explain the profit part in under and over. I'll do that. When we'll be doing the questions, you'll get it more. Thank you. Okay. Now, textbook, we are not referring. I'm saying any concept which you want to ask me, ask me. Okay. So, Shivani, on a quick note, I explain this to you. A skilled worker in XYZ is guaranteed a wage rate of 30 per hour, right? So his basic wage rate, Shivani, is rupees 30, right? The standard time for a product is 4 hours. P, a machine man, has been paid wages under row 1 and he has earned an effective wage rate. What is effective wage rate? Effective wage rate means his total wages divided by actual hours, right? Which is 37.5 as per row 1. Now, they have not told me what is the actual time you have spent. So can you take actual time as X, right? So putting it into row 1, in under row 1 plan, your basic wages would be how much we will be getting, 30 per hour, and how many hours that you work, 30x, plus you'll be getting a bonus. Yes. What will be the bonus figure? If I just put in the bonus figure here, bonus figure would be time saved. What is the time saved? You are allowed to work for 4 hours. So time saved will be standard minus actual, which is 4 minus x, divided by standard time or time allowed, which is 4, right, into time taken, which is x. Yes. And of course, this whole thing multiplied by 30 rupees. Yes. Now, when you're going to solve it, it is going to be 4x minus x square divided by 4. Yes. You further multiply this with 30. Yes or no? Solve the equation, Shivani. I think you'll be able to get the answer. Right. If I clear. See, this is what Institute has done. T is the time which they have taken up actual time into 30. So this is 30t plus 4 minus t into the hourly rate. Both sides are divided by t, right? And they've just calculated it, right? So I think that's fine. Okay. Ma'am, yes, ma'am, I just wanted to know how we put it with 37 point, how we put t with it. That's only for the purpose of solving. You have just taken up and what you can say, bolte na, a calcium kind of a thing, जैसे आप लेते हैं, उस तरीके से. You don't want to divide it by t. You can solve this 4 minus t divided by 4 into t. Now 4t minus t square divided by 4. You can take 4 this side, solve it. You don't need to divide everything by t because it was coming out to be t square. So Institute divided t by both the sides. You don't want to do it, don't do it. Solve it normally. You'll get the answer. Right? Okay. So you want me to do it, Shivani? I'll do it for you. Else, please solve it. T 30t plus 4t minus t square divided by 4. Multiply this with 30. You'll have 4 down. 4 will be multiplied here. Solve the equation. So you'll have things in t square. Solved it. Take a square root. Institute just divided both the sides by t and get the answer. Right? Okay. Now, this is now some people say okay. You guys don't have patience. मैंने बोला ना next class में when we'll solve the sums it will be more appropriate. Anyway, I will retry to tell for certain students who have not understood. Okay. If I tell you a budgeted overhead recovery rate is rupee 10 per hour, right? And if I tell you actually overheads incurred is 2,10,000 rupees. Yes. Then I also tell you actual hours worked. Right. If I tell you happens to be 16,000 hours. Now, please understand this budgeted overhead recovery rate must have been calculated with respect to the budgeted overheads and the budgeted hours which I can work. Yes. On that basis, I calculated a recovery rate. Why do I do that? Because by doing that only, I can find out the cost per unit. What is a standard cost sheet or what is a cost sheet? Cost sheet is, we're just trying to find out the cost per unit. Now, cost per unit, for the purpose of finding out cost per unit, direct material and direct labor is easy because that's per unit. But there are various overheads, various expenses which are being incurred. Now, I can't wait for my actual expenditures to be incurred and then find out the cost per unit. As each one of you agrees, we need to find out the cost on day one. So what do? We budget that, okay, what will be the overheads? And on that basis, We find out an overhead recovery rate. Overhead recovery absorption rate is nothing but budgeted overheads divided by budgeted hours or budgeted units or budgeted machine hours or any absorption methodology which you think is appropriate. Once you have done that, you calculated, okay, my overhead rate should have been 10 rupees per hour. Now this was as per the hours you calculated a budgeted overhead recovery rate. You actually worked only for 16,000 hours. So technically, how much overhead you recovered, how much overhead you recovered or you charged in the cost sheet, how much overhead you will charge in the cost sheet. You will charge 16,000 into 10, which is 1,60,000. But actually, how much you have incurred? 2,10,000. So how much you never charge or you do not charge or you undercharge in a cost sheet is 50,000 rupees. Now this expenditure which you have not charged in the cost sheet is a loss to you. You know why? Because if you have not charged in the cost sheet, that means you have not passed this on to the customer. This is not a part and parcel of the cost sheet which you have made. So this undercharged overheads, what will be the impact? Since they have not been charged, if from the sale value, you have not subtracted 2,10,000. I ask you a very simple question. If your sales is 3 lakh, if you deduct 2,10,000, you get a profit of 90,000. But if you deduct 1,60,000, what is your profit? And why is the profit coming higher? The profit is coming higher because you subtracted a lower amount. Why did you subtract a lower amount? Because you could recover overheads only as per the hours worked. Since you recovered 1,60,000, you show a higher profit. Yeah. So this is all from my side, and I would like everybody to please read the chapter. That's it. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just read the chapter of overhead. Try to see what I have taught you, how much you are able to understand now after reading the institute material. We'll be meeting again on 1st of September at 6 o'clock. Then I'll be turning the pages of ICAI material and solving lots and lots of sum, not only on 1st, but also on 3rd for overheads. Yes. So till then, please see my lecture again, try to absorb it. And if you have still, there is any doubt as such, a lot of people are saying they have followed, thank you. It makes me feel happy that you have followed, but still those who have not followed, we'll be redoing it on 1st. So thank you from my side. It was great interacting with you. It was a lovely interaction. It's always a lovely interaction with all of you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Azazji, I'm signing it off. Thank you.